Hello everyone, welcome to Knowledge Valley. My name is Why So Serious. Today's topics for discussion are related to first one we will discuss about COVID-19 issue, post COVID-19 era and how we can use it as an opportunity to maintain climate sustainability. Then the second article would discuss about India and Maldives relations and the third article is going to talk about nutrition and hunger. So let's begin with today's mind maps. Our first topic for the day talks about COVID, climate, and carbon. So, what it says here is firstly, we know that COVID definitely has more worse consequences than good consequences, but if we see it definitely has been a positive outcome or positive reason for the ecological equilibrium to get established recently. We know many instances where Aravalis were visible from the Himalayas were visible from Jalandhar, and also the cleanliness of the Yamuna River, which had got relatively clean. Uh, so these were good things to see about ecological equilibrium getting maintained, getting restored. But then we need to focus upon what are the issues currently. So we know that the most important thing here is going to be about public health. We know that COVID has impacted public health, and we had also read that how stubble burning, rising air pollution, deforestation are all leading to respiratory diseases and other kinds of cardiovascular and neurological diseases due to intake of impure air, water, etc. Second issue is about the meteorological uncertainties. What meteorological uncertainty stands here for is the melting of glaciers, the flooding of rivers, the rising sea level, uh, then untimely rains. So all these are meteorological uncertainties. Then the next issue is current economic growth model. So one word that we can use here about current economic growth model is uh, grow now and pay later. Grow now and pay later. So what it says is that we can make we can grow the kinds of developments in the cities as well as mm, the urban areas and also the rural areas, but the problem here is then we have to pay to the ecology later. We have to pay bear the cost of it later. So that's how the current economic model is being impacting the ecology. Then the next is about lack of understanding of climate change leading to faulty solutions. So many times people know that climate change exists, but they are not completely aware of the problem. And knowing the problem, having semi knowledge about the problem is really dangerous. So we know that how faulty solutions. One very common example is we used to think that hydrochlorofluorocarbons (HCFCs) they are they are good for removing the ecological problems, but later on it was found that they are in fact impacting the ecology more worse than other kinds of gases and chemicals. Then we need to talk about the measures. What measures can we take? We have discussed about the issues. Now the measure that we can take here is adoption of carbon neutrality worldwide. So carbon neutrality simply means that we have to take measures so that the amount of carbon that we are emitting, uh, we also need to ensure that the same amount of carbon is being sequestered or being stored or being disposed of carefully so that the net carbon dioxide which is released by a system is zero. Okay, or simply making use of such technologies such that the carbon emissions are to the minimum, and eventually the carbon emissions become to zero. So that's about neutrality. Then next is about adoption of carbon neutrality worldwide. We know that EU has decided that by 2050 they have to achieve carbon neutrality. Simply, we know an example of New Zealand, which talks about zero carbon law. It has brought zero carbon law. Similarly, we know that India, now if we talk about the Indian commitments, India has on the in the Paris Climate Conference, India has committed or made commitments that it would make use of or maybe generate 40% of its electricity with the help of non-fossil fuel based sources, um, or the renewable sources, which is and that too the deadline we have kept to achieve this target is 2030. So we should be aware of this thing. This is how worldwide and even India is making commitments to achieve carbon neutrality. And COVID-19, post COVID-19 scenario can be a golden opportunity to bring these targets into reality. Now, next thing we need to, so the way forward here being suggested is we need to understand the trinity of evolution, ecology, and environment. So, how the nature is evolving and how it is impacting the ecology. So, evolution of humankind as well as of the nature and Earth's geophysical phenomenon. We need to realize and establish the interdependence between ecology, evolution, and environment. So all these three things need to be properly understood and need to be addressed. Next is about the massive, massive scientific invention and tech innovation. We can make use of, for example, electric vehicles and the very recent example we saw about PUSA technology for stubble burning as an alternative to, or in order to curb stubble burning. So we need to make scientific inventions and technological innovations to achieve carbon neutrality and curb climate change or control climate change. Then it talks about renewable energy. We know how we can make use of non-fossil fuel based or renewable energy in order to achieve our electricity needs and other energy needs. And then, of course, developing the climate change infrastructure. The climate change related infrastructure. So we know that climate change is going to continue to occur, and floods and cyclones are going to occur. So we need to develop such kind of infrastructure, such kind of resilience, so that we can deal with climate change issues, and not just the physical infrastructure but also the policy infrastructure. So we need to have correct laws and policies to deal with the problems of climate change. Now let's move on to our next article, which talks about the India and Maldives relations. So the context currently is there has been somewhat discussions about bilateral economic cooperation that India is talking to get into along with its neighboring country Maldives. So although we do not have a border touching, but then it is considered as one of the closest countries to India in the Indian Ocean, and it holds a lot of geostrategic importance. Now we need to know the points where both countries cooperate with each other, go hand in hand, and which are the pain points or the constraints existing between the two nations. So here if we see about the cooperation, first is everyday contact exchanges. We everyday, I mean, by everyday they mean regular contact and exchanges. So we have ferry system to Maldives. We have air travel bubble that was this is recently being used as a solution post COVID. Post COVID, as in COVID era is still on, but then post the severe COVID era, then we have liberal policies like there's no need of visa or walk-in visa for tourists, and then export curbs. There are no kind of export curbs in countries like Maldives. So therefore they're exempted from such kind of curbs. Then humanitarian assistance, of course, even the Indians were brought back. And in emergency situations, we have provided. India has always, acted as a big brother, as an elder brother, um, as a responsible neighbor, a neighboring country in South Asia. For example, the 1988 Operation Cactus. So, and next is the tsunami and drinking water crisis of 2004. Then recently, the very recent ones being COVID-19 supplies, the supply of medicines, the supply of medical staff. So also we have built their training centers, their hospitals or medical colleges, and their students come to India for gaining education. Also, we train their military personnel. So all these things is what India has assisted Maldives in. Now, we need to know that what are the constraint points or the points of differences between the two countries. So the common one is of course the China factor. Um, by China factor, what I mean is the regimes keep on changing, and there are the current regimes or the recent regimes have been pro-China. They've been tilting towards China, especially China is really smart at fooling, not exactly fooling, but then trapping the small nations in its debt trap diplomacy, um, then building infrastructure over there and providing debts on high interests. And also, there's this India Out campaign going on about the China tilting governments there, where they know that India is developing political and social infrastructure in Maldives, and they are trying uh, to push India out, and they are resisting the Indian help in such kind of infrastructure development. Then, of course, the political instability. We keep on hearing about the military coup and the the corrupt leaders, and recently the president was put into jail. So there's a lot of political instability in Maldives, and that has a lot to impact the India-Maldives relations. Next, we are going to talk about nutrition and hunger. And we have a separate topic relating to hunger and poverty, so this is important. Now, why to reduce or why so many steps are being taken in order to curb hunger and achieve nutrition is because FAO itself was developed with the help of 44 countries initially, and its very purpose of establishment was to eliminate hunger and provide nutritious diet to humans all across the world, and especially developing and underdeveloped nations. And also, when it comes to agriculture, we know that the primary objective of agriculture is to produce food and fill people's stomach, and that too with good amount of nutrition, minerals, safe and hygienic food resources. So we need to realize that what are the problems. One is that increasing sickness, deaths, and decrease in cognitive ability. So people who suffer from hunger and a lack of nutrition, the problems that they face are, of course, they'll fall sick because they have low immunity, because they do not have enough minerals and vitamins in their body to fight the diseases. Then is deaths, of course, because because of prolonged sickness and vulnerability to epidemics and contagious diseases. And then, of course, decreased cognitive ability. So we know that how the nutrition has direct impact on our thinking capability, on our cognition, and our memorizing capacity. That is why even students are advised to have the right amount of food and the right kind of food, because it directly impacts our cognitive and thinking ability. And also, one problem is the quality has died. There is the quality of food. Even though people are getting food, their stomachs are getting filled, but the quality of food that they get is often the grains are not properly stored, they are not up to the mark. Um, they have they have some kind of so, for example, if perishable fruits and vegetables are there, often by the time they reach the markets, the local markets or the subsidized market, they are not in the good condition to be consumed, and that is what refrains people from consuming them. So we need to have how good storage capacity is also linked to hunger. If you don't have good storage capacity, the quality of food that is being delivered will be bad, and of course then it is going to impact people's health and cause mortality, and due to economic constraints. So yeah. Also here we can see that people who are not really, they do not have the monetary resources, so they rely to street food or low quality food, food that is less expensive, and therefore the food that they intake is very less in quality, and often they fall prone to um, foodborne diseases. Now, next, so the way forward, very simply, there is this term which is very common these days, and it talks about the hidden hunger. So, the author tells that curbing hidden hunger or eliminating hidden hunger is what is the root way forward that we need to follow. And how to eliminate hidden hunger? By hidden hunger, simply what I mean is, people, although their stomachs are filled, but the nutrition intake is not enough, or not even to the bare minimum that is required for sustenance. Um, so the solutions here to eliminate hidden hunger are improve density of minerals and vitamins. Of course, this can be done through biofortification. We have heard about it. We know how biofortified rice contains vitamins and zinc and iron. So all this can be really significant to increase the density of minerals and vitamins intake. Next, what we talk about here is consumption of nutrition based non-staple food. So staple food is simply the cereals that we eat, rice, wheat and everything that we eat on a daily basis, but we also need to diversify our food habits with the help of inculcating non-stable food in our diet. And this can its reach can be increased through solutions like they need to be merged with the existing food security programs, such as PDS program or the National Food Security or midday meals. So non-staple nutritious foods can be delivered or made available to people through these programs, existing programs, and also increase in income and subsidized prices will ensure that non-staple nutritious food is being consumed on a higher rate. Next, it talks about increasing supply of nutritious foods. Of course, the non-staple food that we have already spoken about, but then the another way of increasing the nutrition of existing foods is through different kinds of fertilizers. Especially there's this example that how adding nitrogenous fertilizers while growing food crops can ultimately lead to increase in nutrition in the foods. An example here is that Turkey has taken up this Harvest Zinc program. harvest zinc program where zinc based fertilizers are used, and this has eventually led to the increase in the amount of zinc present in food crops. Then of course replicate Operation Flood. um, we know that Operation Flood was regarding dairy products. So such kind of operations for other non-staple foods and for intake of poultry-based foods is what we need to keep in mind so that we can eliminate hidden hunger, and it will also increase the remuneration of farmers, of people who are dependent on allied sectors, animal husbandry. And then of course the current farm loans are a good sign, and they are a positive ray of hope that show that in the future we might be able to achieve such kind of operations. So, of course, in the way forward, or simply the conclusion here is that the need of the hour is to bio fortify the food grains, staple as well as non-staple, and then we need to integrate them or link them with the existing food programs or food security programs in India. So these were the articles for today. And lastly, I would want to tell you all that the art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. Thank you.